in my preseason top 25. All right. So off the rip, I want to lay this out here. It's like, why do we need a pre-spring top 25? Same reason we need a post-spring top 25. There's going to be some moving and shaking. We're going to learn some things about football teams that we didn't know, say, in January, that we now know in March, that we're going to learn again, or we're going to revise in May. So I'm taking a look at how these things go, from transfer portal additions to staff changes to recruit signings to what the program needs to shore up or show in its 15 practices and spring game. The first three feel locked in, right? Georgia is the two-time defending national champion. We're really just talking about Carson Beck and Mike Bobo getting on the same page, or maybe Brock Vandergriff or Gunnar Stockton can beat out Carson Beck. But the word from Athens is it's Carson Beck's job to lose. And Mike Bobo, I think, is a much bigger deal here. But put it this way. The offensive coordinator and the quarterback on the two national championship winning teams at Georgia are both gone. You got to find a way to overcome Todd Monken and Stetson Bennett going to the NFL. Okay. So Michigan, same thing as last year. Just be healthy. I mean, I know that that's not a sexy thing to say, but Blake Corum is going to be that dude, we hope, coming back. And perhaps we'll see him, but I doubt it, right, during this spring, doing anything other than standing there, because you know what he can do. You know what he is capable of. You know what Donovan Edwards is capable of. You know what J.J. McCarthy is capable of. You just need to shore up the rest of your defense, which means finding who are the guys that are going to replace Yabi Oki and Mike Morris, who were your two leading sack leaders. I mean, Mike Morris also led them in tackles for loss with 11 last year, too. So maybe Jalen Harrell or Braden McGregor or Derek Moore are guys that show that they're able to play those edge positions. And then Ohio State, it's about a quarterback derby, but I don't really think it's a quarterback derby. I think Kyle McCord is going to win this job. And I think if it was up to Ryan Day, he would like to do this sooner rather than later, because then you have a guy that everybody can build around and you can put aside who the quarterback is. You can stop splitting reps and you can start trying to make your charge back toward, well, beating Michigan, and then perhaps a Big Ten championship, and then perhaps playing in the college football playoff. I do a good job of being out in front on some of this stuff, but I don't do a good enough job repeating it. So I'm just going to do it. Kyle McCord played on 3 state championship football teams with Marvin Harrison Jr. at St. Joe's Prep in Philly. They have been basically playing football together for nearly a decade. I don't see how you would not put the 5-star quarterback and the 5-star receiver together to play what will be their only season to play college football together at Ohio State. Together. That's not disrespect to Devin Brown. That is to say that they have something that doesn't really happen in our sport. 2 guys that have managed to keep their kinship, stay on the team, and keep their talent intact, that have an opportunity to show that nationally. I'm very excited about that, but you're going to be watching the defensive line if you're an Ohio State fan. JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Tyleik Williams, those are the guys you need to step up and show something. That defense has to demonstrate it can keep a lid on other offenses if they want to have an opportunity to win a national championship. Number 4 on that list is where it starts to get interesting, right? I have a thing about excellence versus try hard, because I'm a try hard, and I think excellence is really, really cool to look at, but it is not demonstrative of how the rest of us live. Try hard is how the rest of us live, right? We hustle, we get after it. That 4th spot, the dunker spot, as I've called it, is about try hard, right? We know that Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan are on another plane, and we have to make peace with that. Now, USC could close the gap there, and that's why they're at 4. They're returning the Heisman winner in Caleb Williams. I know they lost Jordan Addison to the NFL draft, but Zachariah Branch is an outstanding true freshman that could turn into a deep threat for Caleb Williams. He's already got that kinship with Mario Williams that goes back to Oklahoma days. If he stays healthy, they're going to put up 45 a game. For USC, it's about the defense, all right? I'm familiar with Alex Grinch's scheme. I got to know it very, very well while he was at Oklahoma. And the same deficiencies are the deficiencies of the defense. It's just something he's learned to live with, and you can't have it all, so he's decided to double down. We're going to try to get tackles for loss. We're going to try to get sacks. We're going to try to force turnovers. The problem with that sort of philosophy is turnovers is luck, okay? Nobody can count on getting takeaways in a game. even if you can demonstrate that getting these many takeaways equates to winning, you have to account for perhaps all the other variables that go around that, which is to say, luck comes from the folks that are trying hard, right? I mean, you put yourself in a position to be lucky, and I can get there because that's what USC did all last year. We kept going, how are they winning football games, giving up 400 and 500 yards of offense? Well, they'll have 3 or 4 takeaways. Somebody will throw them the football. They'll pick it up off the ground. You teach guys to punch. You teach guys to tackle with the intent of getting the football. You teach guys to jump routes, not to hit guys. You go for the ball, Georgievich. It's not what we do anymore. That's an all the right moves reference. Somebody got that. I appreciate it. So number 5 on there is Tennessee for me. It's about Joe Milton versus Nico Iamaleava. And I think it's going to be Joe Milton for the same reasons that I think it's going to be Quinn Ewers, but I'm getting ahead of myself there. Fix the defense, right? I mean, Tennessee's got an Alabama problem. USC's got Tennessee's got an Oklahoma problem. USC's got an Oklahoma problem, which is say, score a bunch. Can you stop anybody? Because this sport, it's about stopping people. I love scoring. I really do. But if you can't stop nobody, you're not going to win no national championship, let alone your conference championship. All right, couple others that I wanted to touch on as we're getting through this. Number 7, Penn State. My goodness, it feels like James Franklin's got something. Now, I went and looked this up, and I don't believe that Penn State has beaten Ohio State and Michigan the same year since 2008. They managed to do something, but not both. And that's what it's going to take to play in the Big Ten championship. You got to get past both of them. You can't just beat Michigan or just beat Ohio State, even when they had Ohio State dead to rights because JT Tuimoloau had a Thanos game, 2 picks, TD plot. Like, it was stupid. Only that dude could do that to wreck what was an outstanding game for Penn State. But Penn State also showed with Sean Clifford they can win a Rose Bowl. They're going to get Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton back. Between those guys, 1,800 yards rushing. Can Drew Allar be the guy that we think he is, which I think is a more talented quarterback than Sean Clifford? Now can he lead the football team? You've seen him throw it. I've seen him throw it. It looks real good coming out of his hands. It's a rifle, and he is large enough to make things happen on the go and on the move. I expect we'll see some really cool formations and plays for one Drew Allar, which might end up just being some version of quarterback power, quarterback counter. I'm also very interested to see what Florida State does at that 8 spot because I think that they're going to be loaded for bear in the ACC. It's going to be them, I think, challenging Florida State challenging Clemson, I should say, for an ACC title game, which means that I expect big things from Clemson. Again, getting ahead of myself. Real quick, Utah's Utah. It feels like this is going to sound like shade, but I'm going to cover the Notre Dame here too. Notre Dame feels like Utah. You don't really have a deep threat, not on the outside. You don't really like to throw the football all over the yard, and you would much rather ground and pound people. Seems to work for Utah. Doesn't seem to work as well as it should at a place like Notre Dame. But Utah's able to win a Pac-12 championship with it, which is another way of saying Notre Dame, maybe join a conference, maybe you win some ACC titles. Anyway, number 10, Clemson. I'm going to spend a little time here because I didn't know what to think about Clemson even after the Orange Bowl because they won games that I didn't think they were capable of winning in the middle of a quarterback derby that seemed to keep going on through November. Cade Klubnik comes out the guy. All right. And then you get beat by Tennessee with Joe Milton, who was put on the bench for Hendon Hooker. Okay. Now you're going into 2023 and you fire Brandon Streeter, who has been basically a Clemson lifer. But you brought in Garrett Riley. And if nothing else, the Riley boys can coach some football. They coach some offensive football. They will find a way. Garrett Riley took the second string quarterback at Texas Christian and turned him into a Heisman finalist and coached him to a college football playoff and national championship appearance. Okay? If you're going to put a bunch of stock into a coordinator this season, you could do a whole hell of a lot worse than picking Garrett Riley because Dabo Swinney said, I need that guy. And I think if he can create the magic with Cade Klubnik, who is a more talented football player than Max Duggan, that he did with Max Duggan, Clemson's going to be a force offensively, and that's what needs to happen, right? Because Wes Goodwin seems to have a really good beat on what that defense is supposed to do and how they're supposed to get it done. It's the offense that was lacking, and they wanted DJ Uiagalelei to figure it out. He just couldn't do it. Now I think between Cade Klubnik and Garrett Riley, you identify a couple of deep threats to help him out. You're back in business. Now, Bo Collins and Adam Randall combined 32 catches in 2022. They ain't going to get it done. Noble Johnson comes in as a talented true freshman, but they still need to find more or less their best big threat since Justin Ross. And it's been some time since Justin Ross played at one Clemson. All right. I kind of want to skip ahead here just a little bit and get all the way down into these last 20 spots. All right. Because I think that's where we're going to get a lot of moving and shaking. So at number 20, you can see I have Colorado there. And there's good reason as to why I have Colorado there. They got Coach Prime. Okay. The longer that I do this job, the longer that I talk about college football, the more I have to remind people why I talk about the sport and how I talk about the sport. My sport, your sport, this sport, superstars are our head coaches. They are our head coaches because they are the stable force in the program. Even the best college football player will only be at that program for 5 years. And most times, if he's good, he'll play for 3. It is going to be transient. So where do you put your faith in who's going to keep that program stable? Head coach. So if you are a head coach who has demonstrated you're a winner, I'm going to believe in you. That is what Coach Prime did at Jackson State. He took over a program that wasn't even any good by SWAC standards and turned it into a championship caliber program. At Colorado, he is able to take his attitude, his personality, and lay it over what is a vanilla program until he got there. A program that did not have any identity except to say, we lose. I think with his arrival, his assistants, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, and then you're able to add Cormani McClain, flipping him from Miami, and add Dylan Edwards, flipping him from Notre Dame, depending on what you want to think about Dylan Edwards, but he's running back there. He's going to be there. For Colorado, the question for me is, are you going to demonstrate you got an offensive line and a defensive line that can challenge in the Pac-12? And I'm not saying you can go 6-6, although you should throw a party for Colorado and you go 6-6. I'm saying, can you win that rivalry game against Utah at the end? Can you beat USC when you have the home field advantage at Folsom, where I expect a sellout? Will you show that you can beat up on the national runner-up in Texas Christian to open the season? These are all really good questions, and I think there's a reason why I have Texas Christian there at 14 as opposed to at 20, right? I think that right now Texas Christian is in a better position than Colorado, but it also drags me into this discussion. Nobody lost more than Texas Christian off their 2022 season, right? Lose starting quarterback, offensive coordinator, best wide receiver threat, best running back, and some linchpins on the defense, okay? They're basically rebuilding the way that Colorado is building. Sonny Dykes versus Deion Sanders. If Sonny Dykes can turn 5-7 Texas Christian into a national title runner-up, why would you doubt that Deion Sanders can turn Colorado into something similar? All right. Now, I know that Texas Christian is going to blow up a lot of discussions, but that's the point, right? That's the point. If we're going to do this in the spring, this is how we got to talk about it. Number 21, I got Oklahoma here. It's about putting a lid on the defense, man. Look, Oklahoma was absolutely awful defensively in 2022. And there's no amount of money that I was willing to let you bet against Oklahoma being good on defense in 2022. I thought that Brent Venables would do nothing else. He would have that defense absolutely shutting people down. That is not what happened. We got destroyed. I say we because, you know, I'm an Oklahoma fan. It's where I'm from. I talk about college football because Oklahoma is the pro team. We don't have no Dallas Cowboys, right? We don't have no Houston Texans. Arkansas, Nebraska, y'all know what I'm talking about. These are our teams. So to watch them get beat down 49-0, I don't give a damn if the starting quarterback is out. That can't slide. You can't have that, especially for a guy that is a defensive guru first. And was a defensive guru at Oklahoma. Now, it also underscored just how much Oklahoma lost with the transition from Lincoln Riley to Brent Venables, turning over basically 100 scholarship players over the last year since he took the job. That's got to come to an end. You cannot afford to give up 40 points or more in 5 games. Nobody thought Kansas State was any good. And then at a night game, and I say at a night game because Lord knows Oklahoma fans wanted a night game, got absolutely wrecked by what became the backup quarterback at Kansas State, Adrian Martinez. Look, it can't happen. It's got to get fixed, okay? But if it does get fixed, I feel that good about the offense, right? So your guys that are returning in 2023, Ethan Downs, Danny Stutzman, Reggie Grimes, Billy Bowman, they have to be your dudes in 2023. They have to take it personally that they got run up on like that, like they did in 2022 in Brent Venables' first year. And you better get it right in your last year in the Big 12. Otherwise, you're never going to hear the end of it. And you're going to walk into the toughest conference in football licking your wounds. And that ain't what you want. Which leads me to the antithetical place of Oklahoma, which is Iowa football. All right. Iowa's offense should just be decent. It's all just decent. Like, we talked about it. We're going to continue to talk about it. If K. McNamara and Eric All can get them to decent, the defense will take care of everything else. Like, this is a wild stat to me. 9 teams were held to 10 points or fewer by the Iowa Hawkeye defense. 9! You only get 12 regular season games. They did this to 9 people. And yet, we're still talking about Iowa's offense not really even having a pulse. We're talking about the offensive coordinator having his deal restructured in a way that might quell the fan base just a little bit. I've said it. I'll continue to say it. Iowa fans, send me all your hate mail. I understand how you feel. I get it. You've had what I think is the second best defense over the last 2 years in the sport. That's a national title caliber defense they've had at Iowa, and they might get better this year. Phil Parker's doing an outstanding job there. You just got to get it right. All right. So if they can create a pulse, we're talking about a team that challenges for the Big Ten West title, gets back into that game with an opportunity to win it this time, as opposed to getting ran over by Michigan. That's how big a deal it is for that offense to get off on the good foot. All right. 23, 24, 25. All right. I got Kansas ahead of Texas. Okay. Couple reasons for this. One is Kansas knows who the starting quarterback is. And when Jalen Daniels was good, I was being yelled at for not talking about him as a Heisman candidate. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't say yelled at. Yelled at too strong. We would have real discussions in our meetings before shows going, RJ, are we not going to talk about Jalen Daniels as a Heisman Trophy candidate? And I would be like, it's Kansas. I love Kansas. I love Lance Leipold, but it's Kansas. And they'd be like, have you seen what he's doing? Yes, I've seen what he's doing. And if you take into account basically all the games for which he was healthy, he was outstanding. He was phenomenal. We're talking about a dude that had 2,000 yards rushing, completed 66% of his passes, rushed for, 2,000 yards passing, 425 yards rushing, 18 TDs, and 4 INTs. Like, put another way, if Anthony Richardson had put up the kind of numbers that Jalen Daniels did, it'd be a can't-miss first-round draft pick. Not one that we got to talk ourselves into as a project. That is how far ahead Jalen Daniels is going into what I think is going to be an outstanding year for him and Kansas. And Andy Kotelnicki has said it. This spring is not about getting Jalen to be the starting quarterback. It is to get him to understand the offense. So he's not doing so much Caleb Williams and Bryce Young out there where he is running around making it happen, where he has a literal command of what they are doing. Because if he reaches that upper level, where your mind, body, and soul must be one, yeah, all right, Kansas is a problem. And I don't just mean a problem in the Big 12. I mean an absolute problem for anybody that they have to play. That is also the reason why I'm kind of looking at Texas skeptically. Because the normal rules for Texas don't apply for everybody else. If you look at Texas's talent, basically every year, but specifically over the last 5 years, you will absolutely be pulling your hair out going, how does this team never play in a college football playoff and not win a Big 12 championship? It's hard to say, man. They got dudes everywhere you look. It's about being able to get those dudes to play consistently great football for 12 straight games. And now we're going into another year where Steve Sarkisian does not know who his starting quarterback is going to be in the spring. That is a tremendously big deal to me. Now, he said out loud earlier this week, Texas is going to have an open quarterback competition, to which football people like myself, like you, said, duh, because anybody that's ever played football, been around football, understands football. Every job is up. Every job is up for anybody that wants to try and go take it in practice. If you demonstrate you're the dude, you're going to end up being the dude. My favorite example of this is Brandon Whedon, who I had never heard of until he got to Oklahoma State. And all of a sudden the whispers were, hey, that dude, Brandon, he'd spin it. Like that dude like 30. That's an old man. That dude plays pro baseball. I'm telling you, man, that dude could spin it. And before it's over, talking about the best season Oklahoma State had ever had, and Whedon the Blackman is a thing. Now, looking at Texas and Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, you got two former number one overall recruits at quarterback. One of those guys is one of the highest ranked recruits in rankings history, Quinn Ewers. He also got his first opportunity to start last year. Looked good, like making an egg sandwich, looked good against Alabama. Blew up his shoulder, came back, didn't look like the same dude that we saw against Alabama. However, people are starting to figure out Texas too. You know, everybody else gets better. And then goes and lights up Oklahoma for what that's worth. Now you're talking about a true freshman quarterback whose last name is the biggest part of him as a guy that's going to compete with Quinn Ewers for the job. I've not thought that this is actually a competition, right? In the same way that I don't think that Kyle McCord and Devin Brown are in competition. I think one guy's got a year head start. I think one guy started football. I think one guy has thrown passes. I think one guy has the locker room. You're going to have to do a lot to demonstrate that you can beat out Quinn Ewers. But I know that Steve Sarkisian needed to say this out loud, if for no other reason but to appease the Mannings. You're probably not going to let Arch go there if Steve Sarkisian says, nah, you're going to sit no matter what. I'm just not going to blow you up for our last season in the Big 12. I need you to healthy and ready to lead us into the SEC. I still think that's the program here. But I also think this is about Steve Sarkisian. We talk about Steve Sarkisian the way we talk about Ryan Day, the way we talk about Lincoln Riley, which say it's quarterback dude, quarterback coach. You know, he has that moniker and he deserves it. You know, going back to Matt Leinart and them at USC. Okay. However, when Steve Sarkisian has been the dude that we all love, some other guy has said, this is the quarterback, make it work. If you had Bryce Young and Mac Jones on your football team, the only way you're going to play Mac Jones over Bryce Young is if Nick Saban told you to. And that's what happened. He said, Mac's the guy, figure it out. And Steve went and figured it out with Mac Jones. Now, again, talking about how my sport, your sport, is becoming more like the NFL. Mac Jones' skill set has a hard time transferring to the NFL. Okay? Bryce Young, not so much. You could look at Mac Jones and say the Joe Burrow situation, but I think it's actually true in Mac, which is to say you got guys at every single position. You had Jalen Waddle, you had Devontae Smith, you had Najee Harris, you had dudes at every spot. All you got to do is not mess this up. Bryce Young doesn't get to say that in 2022. He's got Jahmyr Gibbs. Who else stepped up? Who else was a problem? There was no Jameson Williams on that football team. You get what I'm saying here? All right? I think if you are Steve Sarkisian, you need to pick a guy. You need to pick a guy and say, I'm going to make it work. No more of this. I got to sit a dude or I have to figure out which guy is going to take the job because that's just not working. It hasn't worked for you in 2 years. And now you're going into this thing and you're going to have talent at tailback, but no depth at tailback. You lose Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson. That is the best player that Texas has actually produced in the last decade. And a guy that loved Texas football so much that he converted from quarterback to tailback for another head coach and stayed put as the backup tailback on your football team. That's selfless like you would not believe. And now you got to go in there with, I think it's some good dudes. Like Jaden Blute, he's going to be a problem, I think. Cedric Baxter Jr. coming out of Edgewater in Orlando had 1,395 yards rushing and 15 TDs in like 10 games. He's going to be a dude. But will he be able to catch up in a hurry? Will Keelan Robinson be able to catch up in a hurry? Until then, you need Quinn Ewers and Xavier Worthy to make it work. You need them to get you points that are easy, taking the top off the defense, while Jalen Ford on that defense with Pete Kwiatkowski gets them right. I don't think this is a time to be figuring out who the quarterback is. I don't think this is a time to be splitting reps with the first team. I think this is a time to say, no, I got Secretariat and I'm going to run him. Okay? That's Quinn Ewers. That's South Lake Carroll. That is the dude who was more or less created in a lab to be the quarterback at Texas. All right? Like that's how it feels with the mullet, the grunge. I want the dude to pick up a razor, but that's just me. I'm getting to be an old man. That's how these things are starting to affect me. But I don't see why you wouldn't just go and do that. Make Quinn Ewers the guy, as opposed to having a competition, even if you are having a competition in name only. Okay, Texas Tech is here at 25, mostly because I think they're going to figure out the offensive line thing. They're asking the tackles to switch positions, which I think is going to be interesting because sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But what we know is the weakness on that 2022 Texas Tech team was the offensive line. Now, you return Tyler Shuck and Baron Morton, two guys that started football games for you in 2022. But that's also two guys that started football games for you in 2022. And that's without us counting Donovan Smith, who also did that, who transferred to Houston. I'm saying you couldn't keep your quarterbacks upright. Okay? 41 sacks allowed by Texas Tech in 2022. That's more than 3 a game. You can't have that. Your quarterback's got to know that he's protected so he can see the field and do that thing that Zach Kittley wants him to do, which is chuck it all over the yard. If they can shore up the offensive line, Texas Tech, like Kansas, can be a problem, all right? It's also another way of saying Texas A&M is not here. I've been bit too many times. We're just not going to do that. We're just not going to do that. Texas is already here, right? And I've already told you what I need to see from Texas. But if I see it from Texas, again, there's no reason why Texas can't be the best team in the Big 12 in their last year in the Big 12. And my goodness, do Oklahoma and Texas need a good year going out in the Big 12?